Turner Classic Movies is beloved by fans around the world. The award-winning network features insightful commentaries from hosts Robert Osborne and Ben Mankiewicz, along with special guests and original programs. TCM also connects with movie fans through live events like the TCM Classic Cruise. We set sail on the 2015 cruise with thousands of fans and legendary stars for a very special voyage, celebrating the magic of the movies.
Here with us. So I hope you have a great time. How many have been here before? Yeah! How many have been here twice before?
Thanks for coming.
I got to tell you, we've had really great luck in these 5 years because the people, the celebrities that we've had coming on have been people that are very compatible. They're easy to get along with. They're not temperamental. I don't recall we've had any diva behavior from the men or the women. And again, the people are very courteous, the guests on the ship, not the celebrities. They're courteous too, but just the people that have come on the cruise are so courteous to everybody and kind of leave you alone if you're not interacting for a reason. It's a pleasure. I have to say that this whole thing, when the first idea came up, I wasn't necessarily that keen about it, going on a cruise. That would be work, I thought. Well, it's turned out to be like the high point for me of the whole year. So I was trying to think, what can I do to bring around show business or around movies? Be an actor? Well, I tried that. That didn't really work, wasn't satisfying. Being a writer, yeah, it was okay, but not, I didn't find my niche until Ted Turner invented Turner Classic Movies, and I got the job, and I thought, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
It's Robert's sensibility, it's Robert's vast knowledge, and then his idea of what story works, how to tell a story, how to make these movies a little more relatable, how to feel like you're getting something out of just watching the movie. I mean, watching the movies is good enough, but we have added something that makes it that much more special. And he figured it out, and if he doesn't figure it out, I don't have this job. To say I'm grateful to Robert is a gargantuan understatement. I was a journalist first and then came into this TCM job, but still what I like best is when I'm putting these movies in some historical context, when I'm putting them in a historical context or in a political context. I think that's what's most satisfying to me. So there's no cruise part of this for me. There's no putting my feet up. I'm not reading a Jackie Collins novel on the deck, but it's exhilarating. It's incredibly satisfying.
The audiences are so marvelous. They are so respectful. The people on the ship, between the times they see you. I think TCM does send out with the letter when they want a reservation, something about the people the people working for TCM, to be courteous, not take photos unless you ask, and so forth and so on. And they really learned the lesson because they're so nice, and because they're nice, you'll say, "Do you want to take a picture?" No. But may I take your picture? Yes, of course. They've been wonderful, and the audiences, they fill those huge theaters, and it makes it so nice on stage with Robert Osborne or Ben Mankiewicz, my two people who interviewed me. I don't know where I got the confidence, but I never doubted that I would finally be the leading lady on the stage or in the television show. I guess the work ethic. I was out there every day making the rounds in New York. And in those days you could do that. I didn't have an agent. but I knew somebody to knock on doors, have an interview, get an audition, and I did all kinds of things. I modeled, I did some commercials for products, photos. I did, my first radio show was, "This is your long distance operator, number please." That was you never forget your first jobs. And then that was my first job in radio. And that was a hard nut to crack. There were only maybe 13, 14 actors who were doing all the shows. So I finally got to do Rosemary, and I thought that was quite a coup. By the time I was getting scripts with wonderful roles, leading roles, I felt confident because I'd watched all the actors around me, the stars of the shows, and I started out from the bottom so that I didn't walk on and suddenly you have a starring role. By the time I was offered those roles, I felt very confident because I'd watched so many actors and actresses do their wonderful thing. And I say to all of them, if they ask me, just keep at it, don't give up. You're going to do it, believe me. If it's in your heart and up here, you'll do it. You just have to keep at it and don't be discouraged, and don't let anyone discourage you.
A chance to be with some of the best people in the business, and it's a chance to talk about great movies, and actors always love to talk about movies. And the weather has been perfect. The Disney cruise is unbelievable. It was wonderful to work with John Wayne. It was wonderful to know him. It was wonderful to be in his presence. And he was basically shy. If not shy, he was reserved. You know, he was not the life of the party or the loud one or the busybody, or, you know, so it wasn't as though he worked at being friendly and nice. He just was. He was there for you, and he was there for himself, and there for the pleasure of being. And he was just a magnificent man. And when you look at Stagecoach was approximately 1939. Yeah, 1939. And so 60 years that he was in great movies, and he made them great, but they were also great movies besides him. Then he made them even greater. But can you imagine having a lifetime of being loved and being the biggest star in the world? It probably made him shy because he didn't want to come across egotistical. And he was a simple man, you know, he wasn't. It isn't, when I say simple, I mean down to earth. I have walked by my set forgetting it was on, let's say in the kitchen, and Rio Bravo is on. That's one of mine. I can't not watch it. I once went into the living room for something, and I had the hand towel from the drying a plate, and I stood there for the whole movie, about an hour, standing with that towel, not intending ever to sit down, never sat down, never stopped watching. And not too many movies have that pull. The Hurt Locker was on last week. I couldn't stop watching it. It's just so wonderful. So I do love movies.
I have had a chance to talk to a number of the guests here on the cruise, and the amazing thing is how much they know about films. Some of them are just aficionados. Others really know the history of motion pictures. They can reach back and remember things that I don't remember myself. Well, for one thing, making low-budget films, I had to work with young people who were not yet established and didn't get giant salaries, but I was also aware of the fact that the audience, when I started, and to a certain extent still today, was young, and the major studios were making films with their stars who they'd build up over the years, and they'd have a 50-year-old leading man making love to a 40-year-old leading a lady, and the audience had an average age of maybe 19 or 20. So it fit commercially what I wanted to do, by bringing young people in to play these. They appealed to the audience, and I was able to work with the best I felt of young people coming up. The first of the Edgar Allan Poe pictures was The Fall of the House of Usher. We had a little bit of a discussion. I remember one executive said, there's no monster in the House of Usher. I'm thinking fairly quickly, I said, the house is the monster. And that line enabled me to get the picture made. They said, okay, we'll give you more money, we'll do this. The film was successful. I went on to make, I think, 6 of the Poe films, and then just stopped because I felt I'd done everything I could do with that type of film, and I wanted to move on. It was exciting for me to work first with Vincent Price, and The Fall of the House of Usher, and later on with Boris Karloff, Peter Lorre, Basil Rathbone, and all these established veteran actors. And I got along well with them, I think, because I respected their work, and I never, which I don't do anyway, I never tried to override their thoughts. I always tried to discuss the part, generally in advance of shooting, because when you're shooting on a low budget, you don't have a lot of time to discuss the part during shooting. It's better to have the discussion before the picture starts. So, particularly with Vincent, we became friends, and I think worked together very nicely.
I adore Turner Classic Movies, and I adore all of the people on, Bob Osborne, everybody else. And what I really adore is the fact that I finally got to see all the old movies in my own home that I never saw growing up as a child, because I grew up in Montreal, Canada. You had to be 16 years old to go to the movies.
So is Turner Classic Movies helping you discover classic films?
Totally.
Wow.
Totally. I mean, I saw the movies of the 50s and not the 40s, though. I didn't get those. So the 30s and the 40s, and of course on silent nights into the 20s and earlier. So I'm very, very grateful to TCM, and I'm grateful to be part of the roster that they play. Seven Brides was without a doubt, I think, my favorite film, and always will be. Yes, because it was my very first to start with, and it took forever to make it because we shot it in 2 processes. That's when CinemaScope was coming in and widescreen. So depending on which version you're seeing, the CinemaScope or the widescreen version, they're just a hair different, you know. But what a lovely experience. And in those days, we weren't working 5 days a week. We were working 6 days a week. We had Sundays off. And the rest of the time was all working. And of course, the rehearsals were probably 8 to 10 weeks for the dance sequences and the ballets and everything that happened in that dance. Michael Kidd was our choreographer, and you know, because you've seen the movie, that was unique stuff. There have been wonderful dance numbers all through the years, and wonderful dance people, but boy, that was exciting to have some of the best dancers in America in this film, and we were all too young and too stupid to know how lucky we were.
I was raised, I was post-depression people, and in Coney Island, and all the ethnicities were bunched together. Nobody had any money, but we had farms, and we had planted our food, and we went fishing, and we took care of one another. And I was 17 years old when I had to lead on Broadway, but they wanted that purity. So I don't think there are accidents in anyone's life. I think we need to just be prepared to adjust and recognize those opportunities. So being in a position of recognizing those blessings when they come, and they do, is the charm of life. And the younger you learn that, the better your life is going to be. Well, I was one of the early ones, right behind Sidney Poitier. And at 17 years old, I had a lead on a Broadway show. Well, my great-grandma, she was a slave. She saw my first play in 1953. She came to see it, and all the famous people were taking care of the new kid on the block, you know. And she told them to get out of the way. She slapped me, and I said, "Why did you slap me?" She says, I heard you sass your grandmother." I said, "No, that's the line in the play." She slapped me again. She says, "I taught you better than that." And she says, "And I'm coming back next week to make sure you don't say it again."
What happened?
I And so I had to look over my shoulder to see if she was there. Yeah, well, to film it was different and difficult, but once again, those opportunities, the Roots, and then An Officer and Gentleman, and Iron Eagle, and Enemy Mine, and Sadat, those opportunities that you must be ready to prepare. So when it comes, you do the best work, and you strike when the iron is hot. And the timing, it's just have to be ready when it happens. It will happen. It happens to all of us. Our preparation for being ready to recognize it when it comes.
Well, this is my third cruise. I love it. I had never, my first time, I didn't know what to expect, and I just love it because, you know, not only are you getting to see great movies, but some of the, you know, the fans through social media have kind of become online friends, so you get to see old friends, and everybody is so nice, and the one thing we have in common is that, you know, we all love movies. Through my grandfather's really when I developed my love of classic films, and, you know, wanting to impress him by knowing if he was at MGM, then I would want to know all the people that worked at MGM, all the beautiful leading ladies that he, you know, that he worked with, Greta Garbo, Joan Crawford, Jean Arthur. So of course they became, you know, some of my favorites. And if he mentioned somebody he liked, like he worked with Myrna Loy a couple times, so then I would go back and, you know, watch all of the Myrna Loy films. So I'm sure that it's, you know, through him. And then over the years, just some of the people that I've met, you know, Roddy McDowell had a tremendous influence and impact on my life too, in terms of film preservation and telling me to keep journals, which I did.
Wow.
And because he said you're going to want to, you know, remember all of these experiences, and I'm so glad I did.
From meeting fellow classic film fans to listening to stories from the stars themselves, TCM's dedicated and knowledgeable staff organized many special events for guests, making the 2015 TCM Cruise a truly memorable experience for everyone. The network also welcomes fans to the annual TCM Classic Film Festival in Hollywood and the TCM Classic Film Tour in New York City and Los Angeles. I'm Veronica Dudo.